All right, with great pleasure, we welcome back to the show Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent. Mr. Secretary, thank you for doing this. I know you've got a big trip out to Asia. And let me just begin. There's a lot of stock market turbulence, rumors. I don't know how to say that U.S. official and 3 people were briefed by U.S. authorities. The White House is weighing a bunch of export controls on China, software, laptops, jet engines, to retaliate against rare earths. This was a Reuters story. Other news organs have picked it up. I have no idea whether there's any validity to it, and I wondered if you wanted to comment. I know you're meeting with the Chinese very soon.
Yep. So, Larry, good to be back with you. I'm leaving this evening. Jamieson Greer's already on his way to Kuala Lumpur. And in Malaysia, on Saturday and Sunday, we're going to be meeting with our Chinese counterpart, the Vice Premier Hu Feng. And you just talked about some of the potential export controls we may put on, but the Chinese announced on October 8th this wide-ranging export controls on rare earth magnets, just on rare earths all over the world. This is China versus the globe. It's not just on the U.S. And I can tell you that this licensing regime that they proposed is unworkable and unacceptable. So we are contemplating, if we are not able to negotiate a pause or relief on this regime, how the U.S. and the allies would respond.
So this will be part of your discussions, and then presumably part of the discussions between President Trump and Xi.
Larry, I'm hoping that we can get this ironed out this weekend so that the leaders can enter their talks on a more positive note, because President Trump has great regard for Party Chair Xi. They're in frequent contact, and it would be a shame to waste their first in-person meeting during President Trump's second term, trying to get past some problems rather than moving towards more constructive dialogue between the U.S. and China.
So just to clarify, nothing is set in cement or stone. This is going to be part of the negotiations that you'll be conducting on behalf of the president.
Exactly, Larry. But all options are on the table. I am optimistic. We've had a successful de-escalation, but we're going to have two days of very fulsome talks. This will be the 5th meeting we've had. We've been Geneva, London, Stockholm, Madrid. Now we're moving to Asia, to Kuala Lumpur. There's also the ASEAN conference going on. We'll be traveling with the president to Japan to meet the new prime minister. She is a protege of Prime Minister Abe, who the president was very close to. So I think that they will have a very good relationship. Then we'll be moving on to the APEC conference in Korea, where the president is currently scheduled to do a pull-aside with Xi.
So there's also talk today, Scott, not the first time, sanctions on those who purchase Russian oil, or perhaps other sanctions on Russia itself. Can you shed any light on that?
Larry, as you know, and the world can see, President Trump is the president of peace. He's done peace deals, trade deals, tax deals, and part of the peace deal, the real remaining final conflict in the world, this would be the 9th one that he has found a solution to, would be between Russia and Ukraine. President Putin has not come to the table in an honest and forthright manner, as we'd hoped. There were talks in Alaska. President Trump walked away when he realized that things were not moving forward. There have been behind-the-scenes talk, but I believe that the president is disappointed at the where we are in these talks. So either this evening or first thing tomorrow morning, we are going to be announcing a substantial increase in Russia's sanctions. I'm not going to give you the exact sanctions, but I can tell you that this will be one of the largest sanctions that we have done against the Russian Federation.
So these sanctions would be on the sale of Russian oil, or would this be secondary sanctions on all business with Russia? Can you help us out there?
These are sanctions, not secondary tariffs.
And this would affect China, which is, I think, the largest purchaser of Russian oil?
Larry, I don't want to give away too much, but again, we're hoping to have these out either after the close or first thing in the morning, but these are going to be substantial and powerful, and we are urging our European and G7 allies, plus Canada and Australia, to come along with us.
Well, that was my next question. The president today is meeting with the head of NATO, and they have generally good relations. Will the NATO countries, will the EU come along with the Russian sanctions or Russian tariffs or whatever?
They've implemented their, excuse me, their own sanctions package. They're on the 19th package, and we'll see whether they join us in these. We've encouraged them to. I've been making phone calls late morning, all afternoon to discuss it with them. I'll be on the phone later this evening before I leave for Malaysia.
Secretary, why is China selling their Treasury bonds and buying gold? What is that all about? They've done a lot of it this year, but they and some of their BRIC allies have been doing it for years before. Are they trying to stop the dollar from being the world's reserve currency, or how do you read that? Because the gold rally seems to be being driven by these Chinese purchases.
Well, look, Larry, you and I have been around the financial markets to know what a mania looks like, what a momentum looks like, and yes, the Chinese central bank has been adding to their gold reserves. Many emerging market countries have. The U.S. has the largest reserves in the world, so as gold has gone up, it has helped what we've got in Fort Knox substantially. And I can't speak to why they're doing it, but the good news is that our Treasury bill auctions have never been so solid, especially with overseas buyers, that as Treasury Secretary, I can see who is coming in. And there was a narrative in the spring after Liberation Day that foreigners were backing off on buying. And I can tell you that in some auctions we've seen record foreign purchases, and we've seen very, very good foreign interest lately.
In general, are you satisfied with the value of the dollar against other currencies?
Larry, as I pointed out before, we had a depreciation in the dollar, and strong dollar policy does not mean the dollar does not have short-term fluctuations up or down. Strong dollar means that we practice the policies and have the policies to keep the dollar strong and the reserve currency. What I observed was that in 2017, the dollar was weak in President Trump's first year, and it bottomed the day that you all got the tax bill done. So in the late December, right before Christmas, if you look at a chart, the dollar bottomed. If you go back and look at this year, the dollar bottomed right around July 4th when we got the one big beautiful bill done.
Yeah. Well, I figured, looking at this story, if you're not happy with what China's doing, you'll just fire more of their rogue negotiators. I mean, you fire this poor guy, and who knows, you may go on the warpath and fire some others, Mr. Secretary. We're all very impressed with that.
Larry, I just stick with personnel decisions in my building. I like to point out, when there are problem counterparties, and I think that maybe Chinese leadership saw something they didn't like. I think maybe he wasn't representing their interest in a respectful way, because I can tell you that in our previous 4 meetings, everything has been approached the way the 2 largest economies in the world would do it, with great respect. We know that we are competitors, but we have to treat each other in a certain way.
So let's come home. I mean, the economy looks pretty good. Could be growing as much as 4%. I'm looking at some deflation, energy deflation, gasoline deflation, agriculture, commodity deflation. Budget deficits seem to be coming down. Even spending may be coming down. I mean, I know you're tweeting on this stuff. Things look pretty good at home, huh?
Larry, things look great, and they're good now. I think 2026, 2027 are going to be great years because, as you know, part of what's happening with the tax bill is the president's campaign promises, which he kept, on no tax on tips, no tax on overtime, no tax on Social Security, and deductibility of auto loans for American cars. You know, on the first three, working Americans have kept their withholding the same. And you might recall, I'm also the IRS commissioner, so I can see what's going on at the IRS. And I can tell you that in the first quarter of the year, we are going to see substantial tax refunds for working Americans. On January 1st, working Americans will reset their withholding levels, and they will have substantial real income increases. So that's a pretty good combination. You get a refund and your weekly, monthly earnings go up. And as you said, we're starting to see this affordability crisis. We've gotten it under control. The first thing to getting it under control was stopping the Biden inflation. Now that we've done that, we are able to, you know, as you pointed out, energy prices are down. I think that housing prices are a lagging indicator, especially in rates. So I think we could see that the CPI numbers start coming down next month, the month after.
Well, I think, you know, under $3 a gallon gasoline nationwide, according to some surveys. Oil itself, wholesale oil, is under 60 bucks. I mean, it seems like that's good for business, good for consumer purchasing power, and actually bad for Russia. I'm not going to shed any tears on that. And I think the budget deficit as a share of the economy is probably going to start coming down in a significant way.
Yeah, Larry, contrary to what everyone said, we had for the fiscal year last year, we had a lower deficit than we did the previous fiscal year. And it's as Warren Buffett says, when people ask him, how do you lose weight? You eat less, exercise more. How do you control the budget deficit? You spend less or control spending and grow more. And you're Mr. Growth. So if we can keep the spending flat to down and grow at least a nominal 5%, maybe higher, then our deficit to GDP, it ended the fiscal year with a 5 in front of it, down from the 6.4, 6.5, which was the worst when we weren't in a recession, weren't at war. And I think we could make substantial progress again. And I would hope we could be in the low 5s or something with a 4 in it for next year.
Yeah. Well, promises made, promises kept. Mr. Secretary, thank you for your time. Good luck. Have a safe trip to Asia dealing with China and the others. We appreciate it very much, sir.
Good, Larry. Always good to see you.
All right.